In this video, we're going to look at the WebGL Wavy Gradients extension. So here we have an empty section. I'm going to go ahead and enable the extension by assigning it as a background type. In terms of settings, the first setting that we have is style, and these are all the different visual styles that we have. Next setting that we have is gradient speed, and this is the speed at which the gradients will travel across the screen. Has a maximum number of 5, but we can of course change this value to some other value if it works for us. Next setting is wave speed, and this is the same thing as the gradient speed except for the waves. Next setting that we have is direction, and this by default is set to right, and we can also switch it to left. The next setting that we have are the colors, and these are the colors that would make up the gradients in question. In terms of colors, there are no limits as to the number of colors that we can have, so we can add as many colors as we need to. Next setting that we have is apply to whole page, and you can see here that we have 2 more sections, and the gradients extension is not enabled there, or is not visible there by default. So if we want to make it visible for the whole page, then we can toggle this option. The last setting that we have is disable on touch devices, and this will disable the extension when the page is rendered on touch capable devices. Alright, so that's it for the settings. Now let's look at a couple of things that may not be so obvious. First thing is, if we have the extension enabled for the whole page and we want to cover the background in just one of these sections, or one or more of these sections we have on the page, then all we have to do is go to the section in question and apply some kind of background. So this can be a solid color or any other type of background. The other thing to note is in regards to the colors. So first, like I said, we can have as many colors as we want to. Let's get rid of these colors, and let's give it some blackish color. It'll be easier to see, I think. Maybe change the style too. All right, so as you can see, the default color, the base color here is black. And if we add, let's say we're gonna add whites, then by default you can see that we have more black than whites. And this is because the first color is considered the base color in the calculation, so it has essentially more weight than the rest of the colors. In this instance, if we're only using 2 colors, this black and white, and we want to add a bit more white to this gradient here, then all we have to do is just duplicate the whites, and this will add more whites within the calculation. The last thing to note is that we can combine some of the default breakdance tools that we have in order to create even more variations in our design. So just as we saw here, that we can cover a section using a background. In the case of the section where we enabled the extension, if let's say we wanted to make visible only a certain section of this or certain parts of this section, we have a couple of things that we can do to achieve that. So we can use the overlay option, and we can add some kind of mask image or some SVG with whatever shape that we want the solid part to be in. So in this case, we have this shape here, and we'll have to change these settings, I guess. All right. So as you can see, we have this part that is with this solid color, and the gradient is visible here. And of course, you can use whatever shape that you want in whatever fashion. The other thing that we can do instead of using an image is we can apply a gradient. So let's say I only want it to be visible in the top parts of this section. Then what we can do is we can have the top parts have some kind of transparency to it, and then at certain points it becomes another, we create another position with black, and we can just reposition it however we want in order to just show the part that we want. And we can also, of course, use the angle, and so we end up doing whatever positioning we want with the gradients and only showing it in the part where we want it to be shown. And of course, we can do the same thing for other sections if we have it enabled for the whole page. So in this case, for the other sections in the page, where other than the section where we enabled the extension, instead of using an overlay, we can just use the background type directly. And so we can do the same thing, have some transparency, add another position with the solid color. I messed up here. No, it's okay. All right. And so again, we can play with the position and the angle however we want, and we can create some pretty awesome look and feel. So here we have in this section, the gradient is only visible here. Here is a solid color, and here we're switching it from left to the right. So it's visible here, but here is solid color, and we can do whatever we want with this. Another thing is instead of a linear gradients, we can also use the radial gradients. And so in this case, we would want it to be like transparent in the center. At some points, we want it to be black, and from black to black again. So as you can see, it's only visible in the center, and we can, make it smaller, make it bigger, change the styles in the gradient, change the colors, whatever, and see what works for what you're trying to create. So here it's like more subtle, it's more classy look, I guess. At least the feel is more subdued. All right, that's all I had for this. Hope you like it, and I will see you in the next one.